Chris Van Hollen had been pushing with other senators a letter reiterating to the president the Leahy law. That's not its official name. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Requires the State Department to assess and certify weapons sold by the United States to other countries must be used in accordance to international or U.S. law. And if that's not the case, then they must stop. Yeah, this is being reported. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Ammunition is being held up. Politico is reporting this. I saw it from the Wall Street Journal, though. Biden administration holding up shipments of 2 types of Boeing-made precision bombs. I think these are JDAMs.
So this was a second. I mean, at least this is what they're saying to Politico right now, trying to signal this ahead of Rafah. That was the ammunition story yesterday that they said they were holding up, and now breaking just before the show. Politico's also reporting they're maybe holding off on certain bombs too.
Yeah. According to the Washington Post, the forthcoming report, portions of which are expected to be made public after its transmission to Capitol Hill on Wednesday, will determine whether the U.S. continues to provide weaponry to Israel. A finding by the administration that Israel has violated U.S. or international law will almost certainly amplify calls for a suspension of American military aid. If that's actually what the law is. You may want to put up this piece because Chris Van Hollen has quite a quote in it. God help us if this report somehow says that the delivery of humanitarian assistance has been compliant with international standards.
Wow.
That's a pretty strong statement. God help us if this report... I mean, this is pretty amazing.
Right, because the State Department had previously concluded before the passage of the supplemental, this new kind of massive tranche of weaponry, that Israel had been in compliance with international law, which was laughable. But it was like, we don't want to padlock future aid. We can't go down that road yet. But Van Hollen's trying to say, like, it would be such a joke.
This is what he said, I guess, is May 2nd. I've had a lot of conversations with folks in the administration, really urging them to make sure that this report is credible, that it's to be seen to be based on facts and law, not based on what they wish it would be, or that it not be driven by policy outcomes that they might not want to take. What I've said to them is, God help us if this report somehow says that the delivery of humanitarian assistance has been compliant with international standards. God help us, because anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear knows that that's just not true. Joe Biden said Rafah was a red line. Now, there was some mealy other words, mixed in there. It's a red line if they don't do sufficiently enough to evacuate. None of that is possible. Everybody knows that's not what those little mealy qualifiers. It's not possible. It is not possible. I mean, you want to open up the Negev and allow Palestinians to settle in the Negev as well? I don't think they were willing to do that. This is where we're at with this. The memorandum itself does not trigger specific action should the State Department determine if Israel is not in compliance, but the U.S. Foreign Assistance Act and other laws do, this according to lawmakers. Were the Biden administration to conclude, for example, that Israel has restricted humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. I'm sitting in Brooklyn. Couldn't be more obvious anywhere in the world.
They're also showing protesters dancing as they're trying to block aid right now. That's been going on for months with like a wink and a nod by the IDF.
Why would the U.S. have to build a pier if they weren't blocking aid? Right. I mean, it's just absurd. Something U.S. officials have already acknowledged as happening. I think Joe Biden even said it in the State of the Union. Or that Israel has carried out military strikes on hospitals or aid operations in which harm to civilians was disproportionate to the importance of suspected targets. I mean, They brag about this. The administration could be compelled under U.S. law either to suspend weapons transfers or issue a waiver. So they either have to say, we acknowledge that you guys are in violation of this law. And so either we suspend weapons transfers to you, or we give you a feel free to commit war crimes card. Both scenarios could also amount to violations of international humanitarian laws, experts say.
Yeah, I mean, is there any acknowledgement right now by the White House about these reports of mass graves and people in scrubs, their hands still tied behind their back when their bodies have been found, and the UN saying that there are credible reports that people are being buried alive? It's almost as if they're flooding the zone with the atrocities so you can't get your footing, right?
88 congressional Democrats on Friday wrote to Biden to express their belief that there is sufficient evidence that Israel's restrictions on the delivery of U.S.-backed humanitarian aid violate U.S. law, and therefore call into question the assurances Israel provided pursuant to National Security Memorandum 20. The letter was led by Representative Jason Crow, Democrat from Colorado, a member of the House Intelligence Committee. I mean, Chris Murphy went out on a limb and said, I have not yet seen evidence that Israel is compliant. Well, there's a reason for that. Because there is no evidence that Israel has been compliant. It's just a question of whether. And I'm frankly, I mean, it seems like there's no coincidence that Israel decided to launch their assault today, the day before this deadline existed, hours after Hamas accepted what Israel had earlier said that it was amenable to. Israel has always operated with a don't ask for permission, maybe apologize a little bit later, or at least seem a little bit, arguably sheepish. I mean, the point is, facts on the ground has been the strategy of this country for 50 years. And I think their calculation is, once we start this thing, it's going to be much harder for them to tell us to stop.
Oh. That's been the whole time, the whole strategy, the whole time. And there are no journalists really left. They've either banned them or killed them, or the journalists have had to leave because their family members have been killed, and that Al Jazeera head whose family pleaded with him that we couldn't lose him too. There's just like a massive information gap when there shouldn't be one. And that also relates to the death tolls, which is why they want to do this as quickly as possible, because in months we will know the truth, and it will be even worse than what we know right now. And it's already one of the worst atrocities humanity has ever committed.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.